Welcome to Critical Role Demystified. I'm Mike Christensen, and this is the series where we break down the lessons we can learn as DMs and as players from episodes of Critical Role. Today we're taking a look at episode 28, The Sun Tree. Sounds nice? This is the first episode without Orion, although they don't seem to know he'll be gone from the show forever. They just say that he isn't present for this episode. As the game opens, the party is face to face with a large, many extra-legged lizard monster, and its initiative, so here are some highlights. The monster, which those of you who are familiar with the monster manual will know as a Behir, lines the party up and hits a bunch of them with a blast of lightning breath, and it's strong enough to knock Trinket unconscious immediately. Matt is definitely making sure his players know that this creature, and honestly most of the creatures they're going to encounter going forward, are thinking tactically about how to do the most possible damage in the most efficient way. Keyleth heals Trinket, and then she decides now is the time to use the Spark Stone that the Fire Ashari gifted her. She breaks the stone, and Matt describes fire coating Keyleth's hands. She wild shapes into a saber-toothed tiger, but her front paws are still on fire. Grog gets the kill on the creature. Besides that, there's not a ton to report from this fight. It's a nice break in the monotony. They haven't fought anything since the fight with the broker 2 episodes ago, and Travis was particularly antsy during a few of those episodes. I'm sure he was glad they found a peaceful solution with the druid and the rock, but he seemed to be really looking forward to the fight with the rock, so it's nice for the cast to get a chance to actually fight something and let off a little steam. And I guess there's another lesson here as well. There's no random encounter roll here. Now, Matt didn't settle on his current random encounter chart until the final arc of Campaign 2, 5 or 6 years from this point. It's going to be a while until we're caught up with those episodes. So we can't necessarily use this fight as a metric of how Matt will go on to run random encounters. But in this specific case, this is actually a totally valid approach to random encounters. Don't make it random at all. Just decide on a cool fight and a cool monster and some cool terrain, and drop it on the players at the appropriate moment. That being said, we're definitely going to talk more about random encounters in the future, probably not as part of this series, but on my channel in general. Right now I'm working on my own system for random encounters, heavily influenced by Matt's approach from Campaign 2 and some other YouTube videos I've watched. I'll probably try to get that video up in the next few months because random encounters are a very rich subject to discuss. For now, let's move on. I've said random encounters way too many times in a row. Keyleth rolls a nature check to harvest pieces from the dead Behir, and Matt does something really cool here, something I didn't remember him doing and can't think of another time he does this on the show, but I love it. When Keyleth rolls a 21 nature on harvesting pieces, he treats that as essentially a way to determine what she thinks will be valuable from the creature's corpse. She learns that the hide of a Behir can be harvested to create lightning-resistant armor, and there's a lightning-generating gland in the Behir's throat. This is especially useful for a group like Vox Machina that collects pieces from basically every creature they kill, and then those corpse parts just float around in their bag of holding for several dozen sessions until they finally have to purge them. Here, he's telling them in advance exactly what they can do with certain pieces of this creature. That way, in theory, they won't have these Behir corpse pieces in their bag of holding indefinitely. They'll actually do something with them once they get some downtime. Of course, that's the hope. I genuinely don't remember if these items they harvested ever got used, but Keyleth is able to harvest a bit of the creature's hide to make some lightning-resistant armor, and pulls a gland as well. Percy wants to use that gland to improve diplomacy, which is his lightning glove.
That was so much better than shopping.
Around this time, Matt describes Tiberius muttering about not feeling prepared and says he's going to teleport away to try a new plan and that he'll be back in a few days. The cast tries very hard to get Tiberius to stay, despite knowing Matt is just trying to explain Tiberius' absence for this session.
I don't think I'm quite prepared enough for this. Be back in a few days.
What?
No, don't leave.
He sits down and starts making his
No,
teleportation.
we need that.
Sure you want to go?
Tiberius leans in and whispers to you in a strange tongue, and it sparks in your ear somewhere. The player's not here, and the DM's trying to not make it too complicated for him to keep track of an additional character for the session.
I understand
I know, I'm just trying to give you a hard time.
I'll remember that.
Oh, no.
I grab Lockheed and we hold him hostage.
Yeah. You can't leave.
As they're in the mountains, Matt describes how these mountain rocks are essentially one of the main exports of Whitestone. They are the titular white stone, and they're used for all sorts of things. I mention it because that's going to be a plot point later on in this arc. As the party continues on, they find a structure carved into the side of the mountain. Taliesin asks if it's something that Percy would know about and rolls an intelligence check. Travis jokes about rolling as well, and rolls a natural 20. And I want to talk about how Matt handles this.
Do I know what this is?
It's above our
You
history check?
I'd say go and make an intelligence check. Just roll your intelligence modifier.
Not a history
I can do
check.
it with you if you want.
When you made a history check, you know many things that exist here in the mountains, but at this distance, you don't see enough of it to actually...
I just have a...
He's not gonna let me do it.
He rolled a natural 20.
For...
An
help
intelligence
out.
check because I'm an idiot, but
He doesn't know the.
Doesn't
I kind of want Grog to
But
speak
he's a
truth
mountain.
right
He's
here.
an expert on mountains.
Yeah.
Actually, this works out kind of interestingly. As you guys are walking forward and you're seeing this and you're kind of keeping back, Grog, you instinctively look over and go, "Oh, that's a stone giant fortress."
I did something smart.
Okay, there's a lesson here, so let's talk about it. First, you are under absolutely no obligation to reward a joke roll. It's absolutely reasonable to say, you said you were joking, so no, we're not going to count that 20. I mean, Matt may not have heard him suggest jokingly helping Taliesin with the roll since he was talking to Taliesin at the time, but he definitely heard what Travis said next, that Matt wasn't going to let him use the roll. That's Matt's second out if he wants to take it. The fact that this player knows that just because he rolled a natural 20 doesn't mean he's a genius. And mind you, this cast is still very much playing under the assumption that a natural 20 succeeds and a natural 1 fails all the time, even on skill challenges. It would be a couple of years until Matt fully establishes the idea that you can't critically succeed or fail on skill checks. And look, there are two main reasons why you might not want your barbarian with an intelligence of 6 to suddenly have a ton of information. Actually, there are 3 in this case, since Travis didn't even announce he was rolling and seemed to do it as a joke, but that's pretty specific to this circumstance, and honestly, I tend not to allow rolls if I didn't know the player was going to roll for something, so that's reason enough to disregard this roll. But setting that aside, there are 2 reasons to not give this natural 20 the information in a moment like this. One is that it doesn't make sense to you that this character would know something. Obviously, Travis assumes this will be the case, and even though the rest of the cast is excited for him to get a high intelligence result, he knows that Grog is a dummy. That's canon. So he's under no expectations that he's going to get anything out of this roll. This, by the way, isn't something you can necessarily guarantee about your players. Most D&D players will scrounge for every advantage you can get. Travis Willingham is honestly an extremely rare form of D&D player, and he doesn't get enough credit for doing what he does when he plays. But the second reason so many DMs don't allow random rolls from everyone in the party on every type of skill check is due to something called niche protection. Basically, the players who rolled up smart characters usually want to be the smart characters, and having other people undercut them by knowing more than them just because of a lucky die roll can be really frustrating. This is true for lots of things in the game, by the way. It's why so many DMs suggest Rangers be the only class that gets to roll a survival check to check for tracks or things like that, to make sure they're getting a chance to excel at the thing they created their character to be good at. This is honestly something Matt will lean into more in future games. For certain situations, he'll specify that someone can only make a roll for history, for example, if they're trained in the history skill. It's a way to reward their decisions in character creation and make sure their choices matter, and to make sure the other players don't step on each other's toes. And even if you don't employ this technique in your own game, it's really useful to be aware of it. Like, I don't do this in most of my games. I have my own approaches to handling skill dogpiling and similar issues, but being mindful of niche protection is a perfect reason to, for example, declare that the barbarian with an intelligence of 6 doesn't get to roll for a random intelligence check. Even though Matt didn't call for a specific skill that someone can be trained in, well, you know, Travis did put his lowest stat into intelligence, and it's one of Percy's highest stats, so it still counts as a form of niche protection. Also, this is literally Percy's homeland, so not only does it arguably not make sense that Grog would know more about something in this homeland than Percy does, but it's hard to get a better example of a niche that needs protecting than checking for knowledge about your literal homeland. However, there's an extremely important moment in this scene that I think shows why Matt allowed the roll to go through and rewarded Grog with the information. You might say it's because the knowledge pertains to giants, but honestly, I don't think so. At least, I don't think that's the lesson we should take away from this. There's a better moment we can learn from. See, after Travis rolls, Laura and Liam argue that Travis should get the information due to his natural 20, but Taliesin, the one who wanted to get the knowledge, the one who was asking if he could roll about the terrain and the creatures in his own homeland, specifically says, I kind of want Grog to speak truth right here. That, in my opinion, is the moment that gives Matt permission to release the knowledge to Grog, rather than focusing on Percy's niche protection of smartest guy in the room who is also from this area. And yes, it also happens that Grog is effectively a giant kin, and the information is based on giants, which is Just a nice way for Matt to justify it. So Matt gives him the knowledge. This is a stone giant fortress. The party climbs around the opposite side of the chasm to be far from the fortress, but also to get a better line of sight on the entrance. They see that the fortress doors are open. One of them is cracked in half. They now very badly want to know what's inside. Sure, whatever attacked the giants could be even worse. Grog suggests vampire giants, and boy oh boy, we're going to come back to that later. But Percy suggests this was probably the work of the Briarwoods, and they need to find out everything they can. Keyleth flies in as a bat and sees broken giant furniture and pools of blood, but no bodies, living or dead. She returns and the party enters and explores. They determine that the doors were broken from the inside out, not the outside in. They do find a potion and a magical elven longbow, which they will later identify as a longbow of the Sky Sentinel. It deals lightning damage, that's pretty cool. But they're unable to determine what exactly happened here. Some crows fly past and hover in the area, and the rest of the party decides these might be spies. They've seen Lord of the Rings, but Grog fails a roll, so he thinks they're just normal birds. Keyleth casts Sleet Storm on the murder of crows and murders a few crows. I really didn't do that on purpose. They sneak out ASAP and keep traveling to Whitestone. Matt hands the party an awesome hand-drawn map of Whitestone. It's a bit hard to read on camera because I'm pretty sure Matt drew it with colored pencils, but it is deeply awesome. When discussing their approach, Percy mentions that he knows a secret passage into the castle. It's the same passage he and his sister Cassandra used to escape so many years ago. However, they start hearing wolves howling, and the sun hasn't even gone down yet. That's weird and bad. Keyleth flies Scanlan into town, and Scanlan makes them invisible so they can perform reconnaissance on the city. Meanwhile, the rest of the party climbs into the trees and hides from the wolves. These wolves are not traveling alone. There's a humanoid female, whom Percy has never seen, directing these wolves and guiding the pack, almost like they're her hunting dogs. Meanwhile, Keyleth and Scanlan scout the village. They notice some humanoid bodies hanging from the sun tree's branches. That's pretty grim. 6 zombie giants are wandering the village. Remember Travis's joke about vampire giants? It's only just barely not that bad. The people of the village are gaunt and haunted, and more than anything else, they seem just broken down. Keyleth and Scanlan return to the group, and when they tell Percy about the bodies hanging from the sun tree, we get a bit of folklore about the origin of the tree, which it seems like Taliesin came up with on his own, and at the table, Matt basically fully gives him permission to give his version of the tree's lore.
Looks like there were some executions that took place. There are about 8 bodies hanging from that tree.
Why is it called the sun tree?
It's really lovely. I don't know, maybe it gets sun.
I don't know, why do they call it the sun tree?
You're the
Can I go with this?
You,
Unless you have a particular reason to.
I mean, you can go. There are maybe many reasons it's called the Sun Tree.
There's reasons. Maybe we need
Legends-
to battle them at the sun tree.
Legends say that before the castle was built, that the journey into the valley was treacherous and stormy, and the original builders of White Castle feared they'd die. And this one great tree stood in the valley, and it was underneath it that they took shelter, and as they began to take shelter, the storm broke, and the storm did not return until the castle was completed.
That's a lovely story.
It's we hold our festivals there every year.
And now it's being used as a...
As a gallows, yes.
Does it get a lot of sun?
You do know that this, and this ties in with your story as well, because the guidance into forging the city of Whitestone here, that tree was representative to them as a guardian of Pelor, the god of the sun, and protector of light and holiness. Is considered one of the more,
A very serious god.
yeah.
That could help.
That could help us because vampires hate the sun.
Why would they make camp in the place for the god of the sun?
Maybe that's why they're hanging bodies from it, to taint it.
Maybe that's why it's protected. Maybe... Are any of us religious with that god, or...?
Now I should say, there are a ton of different ways to collaborate with your players about their backstories to get relevant details that you can use for your campaigns. I realize that this is actually a pretty major aspect of Matt's DMing style, and we haven't really talked about this at all on this channel. And so this is something we're going to give a lot more time to in other videos later this year. But I really like this moment because Matt has already figured out some stuff about the Sun Tree. Some of it is actually kind of important to other major aspects of his world. But the fact is, just because there's some part of the world that has really important lore centered around it, or is even just the subject of some really interesting trivia, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone in the world of the game knows that lore. It doesn't mean that everyone believes the same thing. And the fact that Percy has his own answer to the nature of the Sun Tree is actually extremely realistic. I think too often in our D&D games, we get so focused on creating canonical explanations for the events and places in our world, we forget that sometimes that's just not how a real world works. And then once we hear Percy's answer, Matt throws in a little extra detail about the specific church in town that would consider the Sun Tree sacred, which makes perfect sense and doesn't really give us a lot of additional hard, canonical, mythological detail, but just contextualizes Percy's story in a really useful way. Did you catch how the moment Matt introduces the idea that the Sun Tree is considered sacred by the followers of the god of the sun, the players immediately start to speculate on how that might line up with the town's invasion by vampires? They start to discuss having Keyleth restore the tree to life to perhaps please Paylor, or even just to restore hope to the villagers.
Rally the townsfolk. This is something I don't think that sneaking in is necessarily the answer. I'm not saying go in guns blazing, but I say we will let them know.
You wanna build a militia?
I want to build a rebellion.
I like it. Well, they would recognize you, wouldn't they, Percy? You've
I
been
have a
around
plan.
them.
I'm not.
You have a
I'm
plan?
kind of into this. Yeah.
Does it involve healing the tree?
It does.
Yeah.
I don't think there is any sneaking in thanks to those birds. So
I
we
don't
make a
either.
stand out here.
Tell us your plan.
Bring them out to the Sun Tree to
My
fight
plan
us.
is we do our best to sneak in. We find cover. Obviously, you said there's abandoned buildings. We find cover. We heal the tree. I have some other ideas. We take those zombie giants out one by one, quietly.
We're gonna be insurgents?
Shh, let him
Want to
finish
be
the plan.
insurgents?
I kind of love this.
Okay.
It's kind of like Attack on Titan.
We
This is
start
cool.
finding our friends, and we start making friends.
Okay.
We let them know we're back.
I like it.
During the night, Percy soaks some gunpowder into paper so that when the paper is burned, it leaves a burn mark of a symbol on a surface, something that can, perhaps, inspire hope to the people of Whitestone. The next morning, Scanlan looks through his poop in the keep and sees that everything is fine. Then he shifts to look at Pike, but he can't. Whenever he leaves a new mark to look through, the prior poop loses its magic. In order to infiltrate Whitestone, Scanlan casts seeming on the party, and they take the form of dirty, bedraggled peasants, with Trinket as a donkey. They are still noticed when they enter town, so they pretend to be farm hands asking for work, and some townsfolk just regard them with pity, and tell them they will find work, but they'll never leave Whitestone again. They say that the group shouldn't have come here, but there's nothing to be done about that now. As Vox Machina moves through town, they resolve not to look at the bodies on the tree. Don't make a big deal of it, don't draw attention to themselves as new people. And then Matt calls for a perception check from everyone as soon as they're close enough to the tree to perhaps make out some details. And okay, here's the thing. Every one of my videos on my channel has a content warning in the description. Not sure if everyone knew that, but that's relevant information. Sometimes I throw a content warning at the top of a video for the important stuff. But here we go. This is one of those moments where I gotta warn you exactly what we're about to deal with. I'm going to play a clip from the show. It's one of the most iconic moments from this entire campaign. And it also contains descriptions of hanging bodies, a dead animal, and a dead child. Skip to the time code below to avoid the description, and skip to the end of this chapter to avoid these topics altogether. Okay, here we go.
Percy and Vax, you guys notice the figure on the far left.
The body.
The body on the far left has a like a red paint smattered across its face and its arms. It's wearing a dirtied green vest-like robe that dangles below it as it hangs there loosely. Immediately to the left of it, you see what looks to be the body of a child. The child is dressed up in a purple-ish billowing shirt, a very fine silk shirt and pantaloons, and is dangling there next to it. To the left of that, you see it appears to be a female, adorned in greens and browns. Looks like red paint has been driven through the hair, and dangles to the left of that figure. Next to that, you see what appears
I'm
to
walking
be
the fuck away.
you see what appears to be another woman dressed in dark blacks and browns, leathers, some furs across the top, dark hair, dangling. To the left of that, you see another man dressed similarly, dark grays and blacks, long dark hair, dangling. To the left of that, you see a rather large man, older, rotund, probably in his 40s, clothing padded but mostly open chest, hair completely shaved bald. Looks like there are dark scars or placed across the face, hanging. To the left of that, you see this figure is actually not humanoid. It appears to have been
Oh my god.
recently hunted bear that is dangling.
No,
next
no,
to the
no, no,
rest
no,
of the
no, no,
group.
no.
Wait, what? Is that us?
It looks like us.
What?
It's us.
They killed people they thought were us. Or they killed...
Or it's a message.
Or it's a message to us.
Do they look like us, or are they just dressed like us? Are they made to look like us?
Do you want to get closer and look?
Yeah.
I'm a little curious.
Do you want to get closer and
Is there
look?
is there
Are
any
you
is there
sure?
anything around the tree other than
They're
that? Is there
probably
anything at the
watching
base
the
of the
tree.
tree? Is there anything?
The briar.
From what you can see now,
they are.
nothing but just rocks and stones and piles of loose
We have
cloth
a
that
good
have just been rotting
plan.
below it. Approaching, it looks like each one of these bodies has been dressed up. It looks like the color in the redhead's hair has been smeared through with paint. The person who's been painted red has been slapdash. You gather with a moment of looking at it, these were not individuals that were caught this way. This was set up as a message.
The Briarwoods have hung effigies of Vox Machina from the Sun Tree. They killed some random villagers who bore enough of a passing resemblance to the party members that the message would be clear. And in order to simulate the gnome, Scanlan, they murdered a child. And honestly, what more can I say about this? Well, okay, let's get the ball rolling with this quote. This comes from a reaction to the adaptation of this scene in the animated series. It's pretty much exactly the same as it is in the live stream, and I really think this reaction says it all.
That's some Joker stuff right there. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's a good place to start. This is absolutely, unambiguously, the clearest sign possible that the Briarwoods are pure fucking evil, and they have got to go. Now, I don't necessarily know how to give advice around this subject, but this topic opens the door to a lot of different discussions. For example, obviously this is a deeply sinister act, but how does Matt come up with something like that? The truth is, this is the kind of thing you can come up with if you allow yourself to fully inhabit the minds of your villains. I had a similar moment in my most recent session of my Curse of Strahd game. I won't share the details because they're extremely grim and require a whole other litany of content warnings, but when I played the introduction of Baba La Saga, I heard the most absolutely horrible, vile, evil plan leave my mouth. I could not tell you where it came from, because I sure as hell don't think it was suggested in the book. But the character as presented in the book was clear and distinct enough that I was able to fully inhabit the character and follow that thread toward what they would do and what they would want. And that brought the session to some extremely dark places. Not kill a child dark, but still, real dark. That brings me to the subject of exactly how dark this is, because boy oh boy, this is way more extreme than anything most of these players had ever dealt with in a D&D game before. I'm fairly certain of that. Marisha and Taliesin probably had an idea of how bad it could get. I believe both of them had played in a Ravenloft game run by Matt. I know for sure that Taliesin had. And from everything we've heard of that campaign, it got real dark as well. But obviously this is a level of darkness you cannot just drop on your players without any warning. And Matt did give his players warning a few episodes ago when we heard Desmond's description of the situation in Whitestone. Matt was giving them a warning about exactly how dark this adventure was going to be, and gave them time to prepare for it. Now, let me be clear, that is absolutely not a substitute for actual safety tools. We've discussed those in a previous video. I have no doubt the cast of Critical Role has their own approach to safety tools that works for them, where they all communicate and keep themselves safe in a way that doesn't spoil the story surprises for themselves or for the audience. But that doesn't mean that this would be the right approach for everyone at every table. I have a few subjects that are off limits in my games, but child death is one where I would make sure, before it occurred, that everyone at the table was on the same page about going forward. Otherwise, I would change the story. Now, we know this is not the first child death or the first animal death Vox Machina has dealt with. In pre-stream games, Keyleth accidentally killed a child, and As for animal death, they had a pet they called Dork the Ox, who somehow they managed to fit into the bag of holding, and that's how they found out that there's no air in the bag of holding. So both of those moments had established for this group that these are subjects they can handle discussing and depicting in their games. So once those subjects are on the table, Matt knows that he has these tools in his toolkit when it comes time to depict some truly terrible villains. Of course, it's useful for us to remember that we should continue to keep lines of communication with our players open. After all, just because something didn't bother our players 5 years ago doesn't mean it won't bother them ever again. To my knowledge, this has never been an issue for the cast of Critical Role, but it's something that we need to keep in mind for our own games. And the final lesson from this moment, and this seems a bit odd, but this scene is a subversion of expectations. Everyone I've ever seen respond to this moment assumes the bodies hanging from the tree will be Percy's family. The comments in the Twitch chat assumed this. Reactors to the animated show assumed this. Based on Percy's face when he hears that there are bodies on the tree, I kind of think he also assumed the very same thing. And of course, the reality is somehow even crueler. These are not the noble family members slaughtered by the Briarwoods to gain power. These are not the people who fled town years ago and got hung from the tree as a warning, something Desmond told us about a few episodes ago. This certainly isn't anything like Lord Briarwood hanging Count Tyleri from the tree because Tyleri was beating up on Desmond. The Briarwoods sought out some innocent townsfolk, dressed them up like Vox Machina, murdered them, mutilated them, and strung them up. This is one of the most vile things I've ever heard of a villain doing in a D&D game. And they didn't do it for any actual practical gain. This wasn't part of a ritual, or because the Briarwoods are members of a cult of blood. They did this purely to send a message. And what exactly is that message that the Briarwoods are sending to Vox Machina by hanging their facsimiles from the sun tree? Well, that's very simple. Wish you were here. Okay, let's move on. They find an abandoned tavern in the town square, relatively close to the sun tree, and they hide in the cellar. Scanlan covers the first floor windows, and Keyleth uses Move Earth to create a tunnel leading to the roots of the sun tree. Then she casts Speak with Plants, but the tree is silent. The sun tree is dead. But Keyleth believes she can use magic to bring it back to life. She casts Hero's Feast on the party, but as a reminder, the material component for this spell is a gem-encrusted bowl that costs 1,000 gold. Given the fact that the characters would have had 8 days in Amon before leaving and not, the 45 minutes of gameplay they actually got to prepare, Matt gives the players a chance to retroactively decide how many bowls they bought for this trip. They settle on 3 bowls, and now she uses one of those to cast Hero's Feast for the group. Then Keyleth begins an 8-hour meditation to restore the tree, and they end the episode just as she begins her ritual. Thank you so much for watching. I am truly blessed to have such an incredible audience, and I just wanted to let you know that. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is to subscribe and ring the bell. I'm trying to get to 35,000 subscribers by the end of April to celebrate my 35th birthday, which was 2 days ago. Well, I'm filming this in March, but it was 2 days ago when this video gets posted. If we can get to 35,000 subscribers by the end of the month, I'll give away 35 sets of dice. If you want to support me financially, you can sign up for my Patreon. Every patron, even at $1 a month, really helps this channel. When we get to 1,000 patrons, this series will go weekly, and I will be able to pay an editor to help with the workload. If you support me at higher tiers, you'll get cool stuff like ad-free, early, and sometimes extended versions of all of my videos at $5 a month. The Patreon-only version of this episode actually contained a bunch of bonus clips. There are so many little moments that I just think of as very fun. The kind of thing I would definitely show a friend if I were just sitting them down and playing abridged versions of these episodes. Which is, of course, exactly what I'm doing with you all. This episode also saw the naming of the Golden Snitch, Talison's most iconic D20 from the Vox Machina campaign. So if you want to see that, well, honestly, you can find a YouTube video compiling all the Golden Snitch moments from Critical Role and Vox Machina, but the scene where the snitch earns its name is also in the Patreon version of this video. If you can't support me financially right now, that's okay. You can still join my Discord community and hang out with a bunch of awesome people who love Critical Role, love actual play shows, and love tabletop RPGs. And sometimes they get announcements a little bit early, so that's a great place to hang out. Speaking of announcements, the fourth way to support my channel and stay up to date on all the latest stuff I've got going on is by signing up for my newsletter. All of those links are in the doobly-doo below. I just made an awesome video where I unboxed a set of Dragonlance-inspired miniatures from Minis Monthly, so if you like Critical Role and their tactical combat and awesome monsters, I think you're really going to like these minis, so check that video out here. Until next time, play fair and have fun.